Hey, everybody. I'm Scott Gaulden, and welcome to From the Ground Up, a podcast about autism, faith, and family. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Megan Haupert. Megan, welcome.
Hey,
how are you tonight?
Scott, tonight is the magical night, the Final Four game. My husband is a huge Purdue fan. They have not been to the NCAA finals in about 44 years. So we also had an eclipse today, which I told him that's the whole reason, like once in a lifetime opportunity. So
if it doesn't happen this year, it's a long way in the future before it's going to happen again, right?
Yes. So I said, if you guys hear screaming in the background, I apologize in advance, but he's watching the game and I'm here in the office. So
I'm excited for him. I will say this. So yesterday I watched a little bit of the women's basketball, and I got to tell you, it was quite entertaining. Iowa and South Carolina put on a great show. I thought it was a really good basketball game. So
yes,
I'm recording. Tell him not to shout out the score because I'm recording the game tonight. So, but for those of you who are joining for the first time, it's not about basketball. It's about autism, faith, and family. And what we try to do is provide an environment and a discussion to help give you the tools and the knowledge and the encouragement to help you along the path of being a parent of an autistic child. And when I first became an autistic parent almost 22 years ago, it was a kick in the gut. I had a real hard time adjusting to all of those things. And we want to try to make your path a little easier by answering some of those questions. And Megan is a BCBA and I'm just a dad. But between the two of us, we think we've got a lot of information that we can give you. So thank you for joining our program. And I would ask, if you haven't already, if you would give us a like or a comment, it certainly helps us to get the word out. So if you finish the show, just please do that for us. It would be a big help. We'd appreciate it. And Megan, I wanted to comment just briefly on one of the reels that we had on Instagram. We cut some of the highlights of a show and we cut it down. And quite frankly, we went viral.
We did.
Yeah, we did. We went big time. We've got like 21,000 likes on Instagram from one post. And I thought it was important that I address a few things because we got a lot of comments from it. And just briefly, I wanted to tell anybody that saw that, I want to give you kind of some of my reasons for saying the things that I did. My point was that as parents of autistic children, we may have to change ourselves to become more organized or more structured, more predictable, and less chaotic. And it may require us to change our lifestyles in order for our children to have a more peaceful environment that they can thrive in. I was surprised by the number of comments that began with, what if my husband is the problem? What if my family is the problem? What if I'm a single mom? What if my children are the problem? To every what if response, I have the same response, and that is, so what? I'm not here to make light of the difficulty of each person's walk on the autism path. It's a hard path. But I am here to say that sometimes we have to do hard things that are in the best interest of our children. It may require you as an autistic parent to be more brave, to be a better advocate, to deal with some of your own issues. Regardless of the problem, I want to encourage you to be willing to do the hard thing that you need to do in order to help your child. Whatever your what if is, my response is do the so what. Do that hard thing. So thank you for listening, and hopefully that provides some encouragement and some definition to what that comment was all about.
Yep. And Scott, I think it's really important families realize it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process and baby steps. That means maybe you just make one small change for a few weeks and then you build upon that. Baby steps are still steps in the right direction and the forward step of moving to get that life from less chaotic to more structured, more organized. And if it's off one night or if it's off a day or two, give yourself some grace and just get right back on track to where you were, where you were shooting to go. So
I appreciate that because it's not a linear path like it is with neurotypical kids. It's a little bit of progress and then a lot of waiting and a little bit of progress and a lot of waiting. And you just have to get used to that's the way life's going to be and accept it and make the best of it. So again, I just want to encourage you to do those, whatever it is that's hard, do that hard thing for your child. It'll pay off in the end. It really will.
Scott, I'm very excited tonight. We have a special guest, a dear friend of mine, Alicia. She has been in the field of education, special education, for almost 30 years. And she really has a heart to help families and kids that have areas of deficit in the social skills area. We know the area that obviously kids with autism struggle with. Individuals diagnosed with autism, social skills is an area of deficit for them. So I've asked her to join us, and I can't wait to have her hop on here and just share a little bit. There she is. Hey, Alicia.
Alicia,
Hey,
welcome to the program.
thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, Alicia, I was just starting to give a little bit of an introduction about your history, your background. Would you mind giving us your walk and where you started from and where you're at now?
I would love, yes. So it started almost 30 years ago, fresh out of college, and I got my degree at Texas Women's University, interdisciplinary studies and special education. I graduated in the middle of the school year, which made finding a job a little bit challenging, but I took one that was available, and it was at a local high school. So those kids were actually not much younger than I was. Some of them were only a few years behind me in age because they could go until they were 21. I took that job really unexpectedly. I really thought that I was going to be taking a job teaching little cute elementary kids, and then I ended up taking this job teaching adults. Really, most of them were adults. And I walked in. I can remember walking in to the class when I had been interviewed. They're like, let me take you down to the room, show you what the classroom looks like, and let you interact with some of the students. And I walked in, and the classroom, they were sitting there, and they had these old history textbooks, and they had them sitting on their desks, and they were open, and they had a piece of notebook paper, and they were all copying just pages from the history book. And I was a little disturbed by that because I didn't really know what they were getting out of that. It was a classroom that had kids with autism and Down syndrome and just various learning disabilities. Some of them were struggling to even write, but that was what they were supposed to be doing. And I was offered the job, and I said, absolutely, I will take this job, and changed quite a few things that I saw going on in that classroom when I and luckily, I had an amazing principal. And here I am, I think I was like 23 years old. And I walked in there and I said, if I'm going to take this job, I really would love to turn this program into a life skills based program. So yes, I want them to learn math. Yes, I want them to learn English language arts, but I want it to all be functional because these students are about to leave us, and what skills do they have? And he couldn't answer me. So he said, you find the curriculum and tell me how much it is, and I'll see what we can do. And so I did some research, and I found this amazing functional based program for high school students. It was grocery shopping and budgeting and all the things. And he purchased it, and I basically was allowed to revamp that whole program. And we went out into the community. We went to restaurants. They practiced ordering off of a menu. I lined up job sites for us. So we were out in the community. They were having to communicate, build those social skills. And what I saw in them in such a short amount of time was their self-confidence it blew up. Like their heads were lifted higher. They were so excited that they could go in and perform a job from start to finish or pay for their own lunch when we went out into the community. So honestly, that's how it all started. That's how my love for just all things life skills and social skills began. And it's just grown really since then. And I've had the opportunity in many of the different settings that I've taught in to apply really that same framework. And I love it. I just absolutely love it. So pre-K all the way up to probably age 65 in some kind of extended day programs for adults as well is what I've been honored to be a part of the past 30 years.
That is no undertaking for a young first-year teacher. Holy cow.
I didn't tell you the scary parts. There were some scary parts. I'm like, nothing like starting right off the bat with almost everything that could possibly come at me. And I think that was all. I think God, doesn't he just have such a wonderful, amazing plan? I really feel like that foundation was exactly what I needed to just launch me on my way. And then after that, I would look at kids and go, nothing phases me. I mean, you can do whatever. It's already been done. When I was 23, I'm good. So it was really a blessing in so many ways.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. Well, and just thinking, being a former educator, the first couple of years is just getting classroom management under your belt, right?
Yes.
Managing behaviors, managing the structure, the routine. And you did that and oh my gosh, adapted a whole new curriculum program. I'm just blown away. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Well, talk to us a little bit. I know you and I have discussed a lot of the areas we've talked about. Individuals with autism, they obviously have a very wide array of skill sets and abilities. But one of those common areas and those common foundations is that area of social skills. And it can be it's an area of deficit, but the deficits can look so different across every individual. Can you talk a little bit about, you and I know what social skills are, but to our listeners, can you explain what that looks like and how it could look so different across different individuals?
Yes, social skills. So those are the skills that we all use on a daily basis, and we use them to interact. We use them to communicate with one another. We use them just one-on-one and in groups. And for you and I, that comes really natural. But for people on the autism spectrum, of course, I try to explain it sometimes to parents when they're like, I just don't understand why they can't just get it. And really, kids have to learn math in a certain way. We have to put steps in place to learn math. And I say it's the same thing with social skills if you're on the autism spectrum. Things have to be broken down. Some students might need almost a formula. They might need a visual. So those steps, those processes in order to learn something as basic as when you walk in the room or building friendships, just being able to build friendships, maintain and look like, and what skills are needed for that. Social skills carried into a job environment. So to be successful in the workplace, really building those communication skills, the body language can be included, the facial expressions, being able to read those on people and know, how are they feeling right now? Are they feeling frustrated with me? Are they feeling happy that I'm here? Are they ready for me to go? Have I overstayed my welcome? Those facial expressions and body language that we can just read and we know, it's time to go. They have to be taught those skills. And a lot of times they have to be really broken down, and you want those skills to be taught, but also not just taught in one setting, but taught in multiple settings so they can transfer those skills into life, into a job, into a classroom, into a play date, all those things that are really important to have those skills.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to ask, what kind of kids are going to benefit the most from social skills training? What would be an ideal type of, for better word, what would be a good fit for a kid that really needs social skills training?
Well, I think as far as the population that I serve, I say mild to moderate with, not that I feel like a person on the autism spectrum can benefit from improving on social skills. But really, the younger that you start working on those social skills, I would say age, like getting in. I know, Megan, you would say early intervention. You guys have probably already talked about that. Same thing with teaching those social skills. So I would say younger is a prime candidate. But I have teenagers that I'm working with that are just now starting to address those social skills. I have a married couple that I'm working with that he had a very late diagnosis, and he's wanting to tackle those social skills and communication skills in order to improve his marriage. So there you go. I'm like, I feel like you can be 4 or you can be married and have a family and get a diagnosis and say, I think this is probably why I've been struggling with connecting to my own kids or to my wife. So I think anybody's a candidate that probably gets a diagnosis that feels like that would benefit their relationships and their overall well-being.
What an encouraging testimony that is to somebody that may be struggling in a marriage and just can't figure out why. And maybe it's just learning the social skills. That's something that's been missing. I'm so encouraged by that.
Well, that was a little bit of a surprise to me to have that come my way when I started this. And I didn't feel, I guess I should word it. I felt very led that I needed to take it on. And I was just very transparent with them that this is what I do. My job is not marriage counseling. My piece is I work with people with autism. So my job is going to be to help both of you understand what autism is and help improve those social skills and communication skills in order to help your marriage grow.
Yes.
Well, and oftentimes our role is to just help educate and understand what autism entails, because so many people have heard autism and they think Rain Man, or they've heard autism and they think high functioning or low functioning nonverbal. And we've talked about this multiple times, but it's such a spectrum. And like you said, you've got a married couple you're working with who he's obviously successful, has a job, marriage, family, but there's still areas that autism diagnosis is impacting for him. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What would a session with maybe a client that you work with, Alicia, what would that look like? How does that start? How does that process go as they're, say I'm a mom and I'm like, my kid's in school, but I really see that he's not really connecting with his peers. His grades are great, but I'm just seeing a little bit of a disconnect. How would I know, or how would I go about learning more about your services to see if it's a good fit for my child?
Yes. So on my website, there is a place at the bottom. That's how people have contacted me so far, is there's a way to contact me. I get an email from them. And as soon as I get that email, I will respond back and set up I call it just like a 20-minute discovery call. It's free consultation because I want to make sure that my services fit what they are looking for. And so I will usually take in, really just listen to what the challenges currently are. I also really love to know, what have you tried so far, or have you tried anything, and what areas have you seen success in? And so just really trying to get a good feel for where they're at, where they've succeeded, where they've tried things and maybe that's not worked. And then I let them know what I do. I let them know my background in the way that our sessions are laid out, and really just ask them, like, after we have that 20-minute conversation, that I would be a good fit to work with them, to work with their child. And I see people both virtually and in person. It looks different whether it's virtual or in person. I've got a little bit more ability to interact, especially with the kids. I really love to pull in social skills games and role playing, and we can get a little bit more animated. We can only do so much this way, and I'll do either way, but I love that getting to be a little bit more personal when we're in the same space together. So lots of social skills games with the younger ones. With the older teenagers or adults, it would really look more like me pulling in, once again, a lot of information from them, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And in our sessions, we really tackle currently where they are. So once again, I'll bring up counseling, because sometimes people get coaching and counseling mixed up, and where counseling is looking backwards at maybe trauma or healing that needs to happen. Coaching is more looking at where are you now and where do you want to be in the future with goals. And so with a teen or an adult, we'll focus more on talking and setting goals. I really like their input on, this is where you are, where do you want to be, and what goals do you want to really focus on in our sessions together, because that's what's going to drive information that I pull in, activities, questions. With coaching, I ask a lot of questions to hopefully help them sometimes answer their own questions and guide them into space of where they're going to be able to work on those social skills in the environments that they're in daily and the people that they're in contact with on a regular basis. I usually will, with parents, if it's a younger child, I will touch base with the parents, let them know what we've worked on in the session so that they're able to pull those skills into home or school and practice throughout the week, so that they can, once again, use those skills and transfer them across different settings. I usually throw out a challenge at the end of our session so that when we come back together, I can ask them, hey, remember what we talked about that you were really going to focus on? How did that go? Did it go well? What do we need to tweak with that if it didn't go well? And so really just connecting those sessions together.
You answered my question before I can even ask it. I was going to say, what does the parent involvement look like in these different types of settings and these roles? Was it like just parents are, okay, go and have your session with Alicia? Is there, obviously with the skill sets and what you're working with, the involvement's going to vary based on client and on need. But what does that look like? What could they expect for our parents?
Yes. So I have the younger, some that parents want to be in the session, and that's totally fine with me. I'm if they want to be sitting there so they're hearing what we are addressing and what we're talking about and what their child is talking about, I am totally fine with that. And then I have some that they aren't in there. And so the ones that aren't, that's where I really want to fill them in for about 5 minutes at the end of our session on feedback, or maybe questions I asked that I didn't get answers, or I got pushback from their child, just made it a little bit more challenging for me. And I really like to share all of that with them so that they can be part of those conversations in between the times that I see them again. For the ones that sit in there and they're involved, I would say sometimes I'll ask a child a question and they just want me to hear the good things. That's another thing that I've run into. So I have to remind them that this is a safe place. So if I'm working with them on being more flexible, because flexibility can be a challenge. So if we're working on flexibility and I already know from the parent, maybe a situation that happened at school that week that they weren't very flexible, but I pretend like mom didn't tell me. And I'll say, hey, tell me about a time this week that maybe you weren't very flexible. I was perfectly fine. And then I look over at mom and mom's like, you need to tell her this is a safe place. And they're like, I don't want to get in trouble. And so I have to really remind them that this setting is different than a school setting. Like I'm not there to, it's not like a gotcha moment. I'm not there to catch them. I'm not there for them to be in trouble. I'm there to take a lot of the times that they are getting in trouble and help them turn that around and help them be able to have tools in their pocket. So the next time that situation comes up at school or in a circle of friends, they're able to remember what we talked about. And so that's something I have to remind the younger ones of, is that this is a safe place. You're not in trouble. I'm here to help.
That brings to mind something, Alicia. For a lot of these kids, school and social situations have got to be very scary. They just don't know what the rules are. And even when they're in a safe place, they don't really recognize that. Do you find that it's helpful that they have this safe place where they can experiment a little bit and try new things before they take them out into the real world? Is that part of how the learning process takes place?
Yes, that's exactly how I would like it to feel to them. I would love for them to come in and feel like they can eventually share. I had a meltdown in my classroom. I forgot that you told me that my brain needed to work like a flexible rubber band and not a rock. Like those things, I really hope that we build, and that's part of what coaching is. It's building that trust. I always tell the parents that it takes time. It's like if you've been to counseling before, in order to trust somebody that you're sharing things with, in order to receive any input or tools or advice from that person, they have to trust you first. So that's really what I spend a lot of time. The first few sessions is not throwing a lot at them, especially with the younger ones. I want to go in and I want to like play with Play-Doh beside them. I want them to draw some pictures of what they really might enjoy doing so that I can connect with them, but they're doing fun activities. And then after about the second or third session is when we try to jump in a little bit more with okay, so how's it really going at school? And talking about the things that are a little bit more challenging for them.
We talked at the beginning of this session a little bit about the role parents have and the fact that parents sometimes have to do difficult things and maybe be able to accept things that they don't necessarily want to accept. Do you think that maybe some of the challenge for some of these kids is their parents need to recognize that they need these safe spaces and this additional training? That for a lot of parents, it's like, well, my 3 other kids just picked this up. Should my autistic kid just be able to pick this up? Do you find that there's a little bit of, at least in some parents, that they push back and that maybe they need to be encouraged to look beyond that? And what might we be able to tell parents to encourage them to go ahead and take this step and maybe put their children into the coaching that you do?
Maybe some red flags or something?
Yeah, I do feel like that can be a challenge. I feel like, and I've offered this to parents too, is sometimes even if I'm seeing their child, they might need a coaching session with just me and the parent to talk about, especially if there are some other children in the household and things look a lot different with this child, the parent might need just some one-on-one coaching on what does this look like, and let them vent some of the frustrations and help. And then hopefully I can help coach them in some areas that they can work on in their house, in their own home. So yeah, the school, it's like you get the call from the school is usually what happens. It's that dreaded call of, oh, your child has done this. Your child's had a meltdown. We need to talk about this. And that's hard for any parent to hear. And what I hope is that these sessions can bridge that gap a little bit between those behaviors that are going on at school, especially if it's a frustration with communication or a misunderstanding with communication, and just being able to break that down a little bit. And I have some wonderful parents and some teachers of students that I work with. Actually, they want that information to be shared with the teachers as well. So the teachers have started using some of the same language that we're using in our coaching sessions in school. So there's that consistency in guiding some of those behaviors and encouraging some of those social skills. Because like you said, Scott, it can get confusing really quick with social skills, and they're learning a new skill. So if you've got a teacher using this language and they come in and see me and I'm using this language and the parents are using a different language, then that's confusing when you're trying to learn new skills.
Yeah. It's like 3 different languages. It really is for a lot of these kids.
Yes.
Wow.
Consistency is key for sure. Well, Alicia, talk to us a little bit about what advice maybe do you have for parents as they are navigating these? What are some things like takeaways? We always like to provide our families with takeaways towards the ends of our podcast. That's something they can take away and apply. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations for families that they could basically start implementing as soon as they're done listening to us?
Yes. So takeaways for social skills, I would say if it's not me that's helping support those social skills, there are other people out there, and I'm sure there's staff members at schools. If that's a deficit that a parent is seeing, no matter what age, like I said, it can be elementary, middle school, high school. If it's your young adult that is still at home, that's struggling to get a job because they might be lacking in social skills, I just really encourage parents to, if they can have those conversations with their kids. I think, to back up a little bit, I know with the teens and the young adults, something that could slow the process of getting some social skills support would be those kids being open to it. Because if you get a kid that's a teenager or a young adult that is just not ready, that's just, they think they don't need that help, then it's going to be a little bit harder to move forward. I find that the younger kids are more excited about working on those social skills. So I think the younger, the better. But as we talked about earlier, it's never too late. So if there's any kind of social skills camp, if there's any kind of opportunity in the area that you live or virtually, I think working on those skills, the younger they are, the better, and they can continue to build those. And then those skills lead to better job opportunities as far as being able to interview and have those skills, to more successful friendships and maybe eventually relationships. So just that, once again, that early intervention and just working. Now you can work on those skills at home as well. There are some great curriculums out there on Amazon. Michelle Garcia Winner is amazing. I'm sure you know her.
I love her.
Yes, she has been around for so long. And so that's a resource that I will often guide parents to. It's like, if you just want to get a book on Amazon, I love it because in her, table of contents, it's making friends and it's all the stuff you can just scroll through. And if you're having a challenge with a certain social skill, then you can just go to her index and pull out a few little lessons on that. And you can use those with your child at home, or you can use them at home and send that to school. And maybe a speech therapist is working with them at school to have that consistency there. But I definitely feel like pulling in any kind of social skills, even if it's on the parent end, at an earlier age, the better.
Awesome.
If somebody was interested in contacting you, Alicia, to talk to you about maybe some of the things they're seeing in their own children, what would be the best way for them to contact you?
Sure, they can email me, which is going through my website, or they can you've got it there, or my email. Either one is fine because they've got the little contact form on my website. That's the quickest way to get a hold of me because I will respond within 24 hours and we'll give you a little call and visit and see how I can possibly help you or get you to a resource that can get you on your feet at least and go in the right direction with that.
Well, and I know a little bit about Alicia, and she's got a heart as a helper and feels called to help at this part of God's kingdom as well. So my suggestion would be is if you need some help, contact Alicia. She's going to help you out. Okay. So yeah. And even if she can't help you specifically, she can encourage you to make the right moves that you need to make. Right. And thank you for having just that servant's heart, Alicia. I know a little bit about you and I know that's where you're coming from. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Megan, have we got some ways to get in contact with you?
We can check out my website at haupertconsulting.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Autism Faith Family or at Haupert Consulting LLC on all the social platforms. Please, if you have not already, go onto Instagram and follow us. That way you can keep up to date with our latest reels, our latest podcasts that we've put out there. We'll also share Alicia's information out there as well so that you guys can get into contact with her. So we can continue to encourage and support and answer questions for those families that are navigating their autism journey. So
you bet. And I would also like to encourage you, if you're in the Tarrant County area and you're looking for a church home and you have a special needs child and maybe you've had difficulty going to church because your church doesn't offer something, or it's just been a while and you just feel like, man, it's not easy. We would like to be a home for you. The Hills Church has 3 campuses, one in West Fort Worth, and one in North Richland Hills, and one in Keller. Each campus has its own special needs ministry, and we have support services, not just for your child, but for all of your other children. We have some marriage classes that we're going to be teaching again in the fall for special needs families, because we want to make sure that special needs families have strong marriages. And on an every Sunday basis, we'd just love to be able to provide you with a place that your family can worship. So if you're looking for a church home, please contact us. And you can contact me at, I think my email is on this. Yeah, SE Gaulden. I've got one of those old school AOL.com email addresses. So if you need to contact me, I'm happy to point you in the right direction there. Make sure that you're connected with the right people so that we can make that a really good experience for you. With that said, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And Alicia, thank you for being with us. Thank you for all of your important information. If you have a moment, reach out to Megan or Alicia or give us a like. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hope to see you again next time.